Welcome to On the Edge with April Mahoney Brains. Here, this is the spot where the conversation is pointed, the guests are sharp, and the responses are never dull. Welcome home, Brains. There's only one requirement to hang out on the edge, is that you open your big brain and close your small mind. Did you bring your thinking caps? It's time to put them on, because the conversation starts now. Welcome to On the Edge with April Mahoney. How are you today, Brains? Are you doing good? Because it's hot where I am and it's hot where Ann is. We're here with Ann Storino. We're going to talk about something that people don't really like to talk about openly, honestly. They're afraid or they don't know how to respond. Grief and grief recovery. Some things you're never going to get over, but you can get through and it can lighten the load. But you have to understand that grief is a part of the process. What don't kill you make you strong. And we're all organic and we're all going to expire. Is it the loss of your job, your relationship, your dog, your kids, your husband, your finance? Grief comes in very different shapes and sizes, and we all handle it differently. But Ann is a grief recovery specialist, and she's going to give us some great tips on how to navigate our way through. So without further ado, let's welcome her to the show. How you doing, Ann?
Great. How are you doing today, April?
I can't complain about nothing but this heat.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, thank you for being on my show. I appreciate that. Tell my brains a little bit about you and how you show up in the world.
So I do grief coaching, and it's really very rewarding because at the end of the day, grief is universal. We're all going to experience it at one time or another. The difference that is made is how we deal with it, right? If we seclude ourselves and don't get any help and, I tend to say wallow in our sorrows, our life, it's going to be difficult. It's going to be drudgery. People aren't going to necessarily want to be around us. But if we can deal with the grief that is placed before us, then we can change our relationships. We can change our future. Of course, it's always something that we will wish didn't happen, but it does happen. So how are we going to deal with it? What kind of perspective are we going to hold when we think about it? And how are we going to show up to the rest of the world? And without help, it's kind of difficult to do by ourselves.
Yeah. And also, acceptance. Mm-hmm. They say that there's these stages of grief, but brains, you're going to weave in and out of them. One day you're going to be negotiating. The next day you're going to be crying. The next day you're going to be accepting it. The next day you're going to be angry, and it could be a while. And then what's hard too is the deafening silence after a funeral. The funeral is not for the dead. Newsflash. It's for the living.
Yes.
It's for the living. But then when everybody goes home and, all the cake is gone and it's quiet, what's rattling around in your brain? Let me dial back a little bit. Did you go through some trauma or some grief that you kind of want to share with the audience to let them know that you've been there? Or is this just something that you
Sure. A lot of loss in the past. My mom died at the age of 63. I had a brother who passed away from lung cancer at 39. My father passed away. My sister died in her 60s. So a lot of death from that perspective. But also in 2019, our son Christopher died unexpectedly from an overdose of fentanyl. He was taking Xanax and he ran out. He had a prescription and he asked somebody on the weekend. He said, I can't get to the doctor till Monday. You got a Xanax for me? Said, sure. Chris went and picked it up, and unfortunately it was laced with fentanyl. So that person did not intend to do this. So a lot of
it was laced with fentanyl.
Yes.
And mercy. Did he get it now? And I'm just asking because I don't know. Was it like a pharmacy? Was it like he was getting a hookup from somebody? Or
so he had a prescription for Xanax, was having an exceptionally bad weekend. He had run out. And so he called a friend and said, hey, I ran out. I can't get to the doctor till Monday to fill my prescription. Do you have a Xanax? Sure. You want to come pick it up? Okay. And unfortunately, all of this, we didn't find out till a year later because we didn't get his phone back for a year. But And then everyone says, well, why didn't you press charges against that person, so forth and so on. And I think, too, for me personally, I feel as though that would be misdirected, right? Getting angry at somebody else. He didn't intend for it to happen. Even if he got that off the street, my son probably still would have taken it, So I didn't see any fault in him whatsoever. It's an unfortunate accident, and it's happening so often. So I think just really impressing on people that if you don't have a prescription for it, even if somebody else says it's a prescription, don't take anything that's not yours. And because the results can be deadly today.
Yeah, well, and especially your part of the country has been hit hard
Yeah.
with fentanyl and the opioid crisis.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But I'm in San Diego, California, and this is the gateway. So, brains, just try to level out, see a doctor, see a counselor, see a friend, call Ann, because there is hope, there is options outside of, just spiraling out of control. Yeah. So dealing with all of this, I lost my mother, I lost my two brothers, but let me tell you something. The death of my mother was euphoric. It was so beautiful. My mother lived with us for about 30 years. Wow. Yeah, but she was, had some ailments, but for the most part, it was cool. She had her space, we had her space, we all got along, it was no problem. And I got to lay my chest on her chest and feel her last heartbeats. And the hospice team were angels. They would call me on the phone and say, we're on our way over. Do you need something from the store? It was beautiful. And I gave her permission to go. And she winked and gave me permission to stay. There was no unanswered questions. There was no generational trauma. She knew that it was her time. She lived till she was 91. And she used to say to me all the time, she said, baby, what if I was the last person here? Wouldn't that be awful? And I thought about that. And it's not about how you die. It's about how you live. And again, we talked about funerals. Funerals are not for the dead. They are for the living. Yes. To try to coach you into dealing with life's circumstances.
And that's what I would like to share too, especially April, with the brains out there, that not only is it how we deal with grief, but how we deal with other people's grief, right? So when we're at the funeral or we're, calling to check on a friend after they've had a tragic loss, the things we say can be more detrimental than we think, right? So a lot of people say God needed another angel, or, people that had miscarriages have been told, oh, well, you can have another child. Thank goodness you can have another child. Or a divorce. Well, you can get married again. Really, that's not helping anybody in their grief. And so think about it. If somebody was going to say these things to you, it's something we've grown up. Our parents said it. Our grandparents said it. They're in a better place, all of those things. But when you're the person that's grieving the loss, you take it so differently. So those things that we've heard people say kind of just become kind of automatic. Really, we need to reevaluate and be very careful. You know what? The best thing that you can do for a griever is just listen. Listen with your heart open. Let them talk. Ask them if there's anything you can do for them. Outside of that, don't try to fix them. Don't try and get them to do A, B, or C to help their grief, because at the end of the day, all they need is somebody to listen to.
They do. And again, like you say, you can upset the apple cart.
Yeah.
It really, but we don't know what to say, and we want to be comforting and we want to be loving. But let me talk about something else. How folks act ugly. Okay. You at the funeral and they looking at you at a side eye. They can't wait for the reading of the will. My brother used to say, now, why are people always standing up there saying all these nice things about that person? That joker wasn't the best. They tell jokes. They have memories. Thank God for memories, because you've got photographs, you got songs, you've got vacations, you got smells. All of these things bring back great memories of people. They're not all traumatic. But when they get there and they go through Aunt Martha's house, Aunt Martha's not even cold. And they taking her TV and her china and all this kind of stuff. What do we do to deal with the offset of that? Because that's additional grief on the person that's lost someone. It makes it even worse. The family seems to splinter when mama or daddy die. They go nuts.
Yeah. So I think the key there is, again, is assessing the situation, reading the room. You may want everything taken out of the house and done really fast, but your sister or somebody else may not want it that way, right? So just because we're accustomed, like for me to deal with difficulties, I like to organize, right? So I might go into somebody's home, a friend maybe who just had a mom pass away, and say, oh, I can help you and I can help you pack this stuff up. If I just automatically think that my friend sees things the way I do and she wants things packaged up, tight with a bow, all her I's dotted and her T's crossed, I could be completely wrong, because she may need to just sit with the loss of her mom for 6 months before she even looks at anything. So just realize that everybody grieves differently. And just because we grieve one way doesn't mean that somebody else is going to grieve that way. And so us trying to push that on them is not going to help anybody.
And other times people, go to real extremes with inducing self-harm.
Yes.
If you feel that way, there are crisis teams that you can talk to that might be beyond Ann's zone of genius. There are other family members, but know that you exiting a situation is not going to make it any better or make that person come back. It's going to add insult to injury, and it's going to escalate it. Do you have situations like that where people are saying, oh, John's gone and I can't live without him? What do I do?
Yeah, so I'll send them to the suicide hotline, but before I work with somebody, I always get a emergency contact, a phone number, because I might deal with somebody in person, but I might deal with somebody that's, across the United States or in another country. So I need to have a backup number if that ever comes to that. And luckily it's only happened once, and I was able to contact that person, and it was a false threat, thank goodness. But I think the key there is too, as I always try to tell people, is if we honor the person who's gone, they wouldn't want this for us, right? It's really kind of selfish for us to say, you know what, I can't deal with this anymore. I don't want to be here anymore. When in reality, you're not helping the situation of the person that's, left the world. So really trying to get the proper help and support, a therapist or a counselor officially that's gone to school and is certified in those areas of suicide. But other than that, the difference with a grief coach versus like a therapist is the therapist will have you just sit there and talk about the situation and talk through this and talk through that. Whereas the coach and the program that we have, it's an 8-week program if you are, talking about the loss of a divorce or a loss of a loved one. 8-week program, we meet for an hour once a week, and we have actions that will get you to a place of recovery. All of us start grief at a very young age, and it's like we put on this backpack and we start putting the grief boulders in there, and we carry them through life. When I found the grief recovery program, I actually was going because thought I was grieving the loss of my son. And I went online. This was 6 years ago, right? So things have changed a little bit. There's a lot more online. There's a lot more books. There's a lot more resources. But back then, there really wasn't. I didn't want to sit in a group of people and just wallow in my sorrows and just tell the same old story over and over again. What the grief recovery program does is talks about your entire life and all the losses that you've experienced. And 99% of the time, we end up dealing with one of our parents, maybe a mother or a father, or a significant person in our upbringing. And we deal with that relationship first. I ended up doing my father because once I look at all my losses and all my difficulties in life, a lot of them tied to things that I had lost from him, loss of trust, a loss of security, a loss of all sorts of things. And once I went through the specific action steps to deal with the loss of my dad, it was amazing how it's like somebody took an elephant off my shoulders, and I was now able to deal with the loss of my son in a different way. And what the grief recovery program also does is, like, my relationships have never been the same, because the way I deal with people, the way I talk to people, how I let people affect me or bring me down has completely changed. I feel like just from going through the grief recovery program, I have much more in control of, my relationships, my future, my confidence level, everything, because I've put aside all those what ifs,
Right.
or, things that I was dealing with and was deteriorating my self-confidence because of that relationship with my dad. But it's changed my life dramatically.
So again, like I said, it's a different layer. I like how because I was going to ask you that. What is the difference between a coach and a psychiatrist or therapist or therapy group or whatever? And then it's one-on-one. It's a little bit more personal. But and with all of the work that you've done, this is some heavy lifting, because you are taking on other people's trauma. How do you separate yourself from that to make sure that you're not triggered?
Yeah. So my whole life, I've always wanted to help people, right? And I always wanted to be there for people. And I would take on their baggage into my backpack. And I wanted to try to fix things, and I wanted to try to help them. And that was the key, is through the grief recovery method, realizing that, number one, nobody wants to be fixed. They just want to be heard. Right. And number two, I may have every answer in the book that worked for me, but we've got to figure out a way. If I'm working with you, April, like, what's going to work best for April? And so I just learned that nobody wants me to take on their trauma or difficulties or sadness or grief. And it's not good for me to do that. So it's been interesting, just from doing the grief recovery program, I've been able to release myself from that normal response that I used to have when somebody would come to me with difficulty or a problem that they have. Now I'm able to separate myself and know that it's outside of my control. They have to want to help themselves, and they've got to take the actions. I can't take them for them.
Yeah. I had a guest on my show one time. It was crazy. She had 9 miscarriages. And she wanted to be a wet nurse in the hospital. And I talked to her. I sent her to a couple people, because it wasn't a good idea. She wasn't in a good space. And I didn't know if she was going to go in there and take somebody's baby. And when you're in a different headspace, everything down to your cellular level is firing off endorphins, hormones. You're dealing with emotions. You're dealing with pain. You're sometimes in this, well, a lot of times, you're in a trance-like psychotic state. Just lost, she lost 9 babies. And then she goes home from the hospital, and that joker didn't pick her up because he hadn't worked at his job in 30 days. So it just is compound interest.
Yeah.
And it is not in your best interest. Step back, take a break, get a journal.
Yeah.
Write things down. Write down your emotions. You would be amazed at just writing it down, how it can relieve a lot of stress. Art therapy is wonderful. A lot of people are doing that.
Music therapy is another one.
Music therapy, absolutely. You said you deal with children. I had another guest on my show. This one really blew my mind. She goes in and talks to the family after these mass murders. I don't know how she did it. And she did exactly what you said. The first thing I do is just sit there and hold space.
Yeah.
Sit there and hold space. And Brains, I know you say, well, what is this hold space. Let me tell you, you can be a full container, and there can be, I do that all the time. If I've got something that's really pressing, I will put a post out and ask for prayer or ask for my brains to hold space, and the energy and the vibration lifts me and carries me and holds me. So just someone sitting in silence next to you can be so powerful.
Yeah.
Because the tools are not going to come right away. And sometimes you never, honestly, you don't ever get over it, but you get through it. You get through it.
Absolutely. And two, with situations like you're talking about with the mass murders and stuff like that, lots of times children will go home and what did we hear from our parents, right? Oh, go cry in your room. Oh, don't cry. You know what? These children need to cry. They need to be heard. They have dealt with horrific situations. And so they just want somebody to care and to listen. And like you said, hold space for them so that they can go through the emotions. I used to stuff my emotions down. I wouldn't feel them. I didn't want to feel them. So what I ended up doing was just causing more stress and more harm. Whereas we've got to teach these children to share their feelings, express their feelings and frustrations, and not like just tell them, oh, well, don't worry about it. That'll get better. No. You know what? Talk to them about what they're feeling and let them be comfortable to share exactly how they're feeling.
And to be honest with children about death, brains, like I said, we're all organic and we're all going to expire. Whether it is you pick from the garden or you wither away, one or the other. But I was in the car with a girlfriend of mine and we were driving, and her daughter is pretty precocious. And she goes, Miss April, my Nana's over there. I saw the cemetery. I said, really? She says, yeah, she's over there resting. I said, yeah, with a bunch of other people. My mom said that's where you go when your body retires, and it's okay, and that she's up there in heaven or somewhere, but I feel her around me. I mean, her conversation was, I think she was about 6 or 7, was so relaxed. Her mother allowed her to go to the funeral to see the body. And then I had another friend that absolutely not. We don't talk about it. The kid is not going to go there. They let the kid go to the funeral and saw the grandmother in the casket. And now she says, oh, well, grandma's just sleeping. So now the child has anxiety about going to sleep.
Yeah.
And it was 2 very different scenarios, kids about the same age, but honesty.
Yeah.
Because it is a part of life. It's like when they ask you, where do babies come from? Remember they used to tell them it's the source? I don't know what, do they tell them now? Oh, it's a test tube.
Yeah, exactly.
What do you say? You have to be honest, but you have to have that conversation and that love language at a degree that they understand. Where do you begin with children?
So we do begin exactly what you're talking about is, you know what, this person has died. You know what, the grief recovery method even recommends we don't say passed away or moved on or whatever. They have died. You know what, they are no longer living. And these are the things going to happen over the next couple of days. This is why we're doing different things to honor their life, to celebrate their life, and just explaining too at a younger age that, like you said, we are all going to die. So not that we want it to happen, but it's a natural thing that is going to happen in life. And just being honest with the children, appropriate to their age. And what we do with the children is the same thing as we take them through like a small example of what the adults are doing. But basically, what are some of the different, they don't know what the word grief means, right? So what are some of the different difficulties that you've gone through life? Oh, well, mom and dad got divorced. Okay, let's talk about that. Or, you know what? I had to change schools. I had to move. Those are all situations for grief, that little brain to deal with. They don't want to move. They don't want to make new friends. They don't like it when their friend is maybe a bully or, doesn't like them anymore. So speaking to them in terms that mean something to them, and then giving them the tools to what to do with it when it happens in the future. You know, this is how we're going to handle this situation, but in the future, you might have this or this or this happen. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about what resources you have. Let's talk about what options you can use to deal with, you know, whatever it is that we're faced with.
Absolutely.
But being honest is the key, and don't speak to them in childlike terms.
No, that's they're little people, they're human beings. And they probably know more about what's going on. They're listening to your conversation at the table. Don't think that they don't know.
Yeah.
You're not shielding them. You're shielding them from a life experience, something that is going to happen.
And you're not doing them any favors.
No.
You're making it worse.
And the loss of a pet. Oh my gosh. That can be really, I mean, a goldfish or a hamster. Heaven forbid it be the family dog, or it be your emotional support animal.
Right.
People love their animals. They leave endowments and thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars to the dogs and cats to be taken care of. How do you deal with the loss of a pet?
The loss of the pet is actually sometimes the most common with children that they have to deal with. And I'm going to be honest with you, we raised 4 boys and we now have 5 grandchildren. We are not as in tuned with pets. So I would say we're not pet lovers. Not that I don't love, you know, our kids' pets and stuff like that. But I don't have the same heart for pets that other people do. So what I've done is try to train myself and teach myself the magnitude that these children are loving these pets. It may very well be their very first death that they need to grieve. And so if we think of it as if we were going to lose, you know, somebody very important to us, a person, it's no different to these children and many adults when it's their pet. Our oldest son just lost his pet dog, Penny, of 12 years.
Oh.
He blew up his entire life. In his entire life. That was his life. You know, that dog was with him when he lost his brother. That dog was with him when he lost, you know, a job or, you know, a relationship. So that pet, and that's the problem, is some people are like, they dismiss the fact that people are grieving pets. And if people are not dealing with the loss of a pet, that will stick with them and continue to cause problems on down the line.
But so it's compassion and desensitizing.
Yes.
And that's what people do. They, you know,
it's just a pet.
It's a dog. It's just this. It's just that. My dog was kidnapped.
Oh.
I put him in the backyard. He'd been in this backyard enclosed for 13 years. It wasn't nothing but a snack. And the cotton picking coyotes that had escaped from the canyon after the fire kidnapped him. I was beside myself. I just felt like I was the worst person. I didn't take care of him, whatever. I had another guest. Brains, I'm telling you, the show is dynamic. She was an animal communicator. Yes, she was. And the woman channeled my dog from the great beyond. And I didn't give her any information. She told me things that I knew only him and I knew. Thank you for being a great mom for 13 years. Thank you for adopting me and getting all those fleas off of me. Thank you for giving me my codeine cough syrup because I had a raspy throat. I mean, she went into detail, and he told her that it was a quick kill and that he was okay. And somebody with gray hair was there to greet him. And I know who that person was. And it did something to me that just made me just feel, again, that I know that there is a great beyond.
Yeah.
And that is about energy. It is about frequency. It is about vibration. It's about love, connectivity, and being sensitive. And again, just, you know, I haven't gotten another dog since then. I don't, you know, again, I don't know how to process it. I don't want to go through that loss again, but that dog meant everything to me. That was my confidant when I was sick. You know, nobody would be home, but the dog would be right there. And if he could open the refrigerator and give me some water, you best believe he would have did it. but it's loyalty and it's love. And I thank you, Anne, from the bottom of my socks, because my heart is not deep enough for the work that you do. I seriously mean that, because you're carrying the light for someone else. It's not easy. And Brains, again, sometimes you're not going to be able to get over it, but you can navigate through it. So let's ask you some fun questions since we did all the heavy lifting.
All right.
All right. If you were an appliance in the kitchen, what appliance would you be?
A refrigerator, because I keep running all the time. It's hard for me to sit still.
I like it because it keeps you cool and you can freeze them out if they act. If you were an animal, what animal would you be and why?
Wow, gosh, you're asking some hard questions here.
Making you think.
Yeah, you are. Probably a cat, because I just like to cuddle up on the couch, hang out, watch TV, hang out with the people I love. Yeah, so maybe a cat.
What makes you cry?
When people are hurting, other people are hurting. I am very empathetic and compassionate. And, you know, that's like we touched on. That's something I've had to learn how to do, is to realize I can't fix things. But when I see somebody else being treated poorly or talked down to or belittled, I really struggle with that. That makes me very sad.
What brings you joy?
My grandchildren.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always say, you know, I never had to take like antidepressant or anything like that. But if I was ever depressed or feeling down, all I need is, you know, my grandkids to be around. And that's the best joy there is.
That's good. What's your favorite movie?
Favorite movie was always Flashdance, possibly because the fact that I can't sit still, and I love the dancing and the energy in that. And then since then, Little Mermaid with my granddaughter, watching Little Mermaid.
What's one of your guilty pleasures?
Diet soda. I always say my two vices in life are diet soda and work. They're socially acceptable, but they could get me in trouble too.
If you could time travel, go back to the past, stay here in the present, project to the future, where are you landing?
I think I would go back to the past and talk to my mom. 10 kids in our family, and she lived through a lot. And I would, you know, a lot of those questions that I thought, oh, I can ask her later, but she passed at 63. So now, being a mom and a grandma and getting older, I wish there was, you know, a chance to ask her those questions.
Right. And that's why I said, Brains, take the time now to ask the questions.
Yeah.
Take the time. Don't take your secrets to your grave.
Mm-mm.
You know, there's no shame in the grave. You know, nobody's going to judge you after that.
Yeah.
And if they do, then that's something that they have to deal with. But break those generational curses of lies and deceptions, or, who's my dad? all of those kind of questions can be answered.
Yeah.
And we understand we're in the 21st century. So a lot of this stuff, there's nothing new under the sun. Ask the questions, get resolution, make peace, because again, it's not how you die, it is how you live. Thank you so much, Anne, for being on the show with me. You are amazing. Tell my brains how to get in contact with you if you have a consultation or anything that you're offering.
Yeah.
Because I know that they're feeling this. I know that they are.
Yeah. So AnneStorino.com, ANNESTORINO.com. You can reach me through there. Free consultation. We can talk about anything you want to talk about. If you'd like to go and do some other things, I've got classes, group and individual, and we can specifically make it to what it is that you need. Everybody's different. So their need and amount of time that they need is going to be different than the person next to them.
Well, I'm so glad that you're next to us. Brains, go in, do your due diligence. Now, you know what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to love, like, share, and subscribe. Love, like, share, and subscribe. Share your heart, share your time, share your wisdom, share your silence. Sometimes because silence is golden. Thank you so much, Anne. You're the best.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Brains.